It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview Avi Smolka, who now works for the Goldsboro Daily News. How are you doing today, Avi?
I am well as always, Brandon. It's an honor to be on the program, podcast.
Thank you. Can you talk about, of course, how you knew that you wanted to become a sports editor?
Well, that's a great question. I guess, honestly, back when I was around like 13, 14, I got really into like movies and stuff. And I originally wanted to be a film critic, and that's how I got started into writing. My dad, who you also previously interviewed, he's the head track and field coach at Florida Atlantic University. So I was around sports my whole life. I always liked sports, but film was the main thing. Then around college, just various things happened where I had to sort of shift my priorities to sports writing. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna do this now. And then I worked in the radio station in college, and kind of one thing led to another.
Can you talk about some of your stops along your way to get you to the Goldsboro Daily News?
Oh man, okay. Well, was working at, as I said, the college radio station, Owl Radio, and that taught me a lot of just like basic things, that tools I still use today, dealing with ADs, coaches, things of that nature. Did that for like 3 years, then was working, doing something entirely different, not in sports media at all. Was like, oh man, because I was about to graduate college, I need a job. And then literally the day I graduated college, standing in my cap and gown, I got a phone call to interview at the Palm Beach Post, which is my local paper where I'm from in Boca Raton, Florida. Did that for about 2 years and just slowly kind of worked my way up there. They let me write a lot more, and then left, went to Austria for about 10 months, came back to Charlotte to stay with my mom, who lives in Charlotte, or Matthews really. Then was just applying for jobs, and that was the one that landed, was the New-Argus. I applied for a bunch of jobs in other states, across Alabama, I remember, Texas, I remember specifically, and then landed the one at the New-Argus. So Goldsboro is about three-ish hours away from Charlotte, and that was one that landed. And then was the sports writer. Another series of events happened, became the sports editor. COVID happened, was furloughed for 4 months, and then decided to transition to becoming the sports director here at WGBR, but really it's the Goldsboro Daily News.
Can you talk about, of course, your time at the Palm Beach Post and what you learned there?
Oh yeah, that was a great experience. I worked with an editor named Mark Bradley. He was the main editor there, and he was the one who first gave me a chance to cover some games. The first game I ever covered for them was a state playoff volleyball game. So a big moment for sure. Been there pre-COVID, packed gym. It was a really great experience. And yeah, I mean, I was a sports clerk, so really it was sitting down at a cubicle with a computer, and then calling and getting emails from every coach around Palm Beach County, Florida, which is a big county where I'm in Florida, that's where I'm from, and just getting all the information and typing up little 3 sentences about who won, how they won, who scored the most points. You've seen it in the paper and stuff now, and it also taught me a lot about dealing with coaches and personalities, especially if coaches sometimes aren't, they don't really like talking sometimes after a loss, so things like that. And like I said, did it for 2 years, worked with a lot of great other sports clerks there, and the editors there. They were all good people who all sort of gave me the confidence I needed to be okay, I think I have a future in this line of work. Maybe not there, because I'm not at the Palm Beach Post right now, but you never know.
Can you talk about what the transition was like from the Palm Beach Post to, of course, the Charlotte News-Argus?
You mean Goldsboro News-Argus?
Yes.
Yeah, so was, like I said, at the Palm Beach Post for about 2 years, doing well there, was writing a lot more, but I didn't know necessarily, I didn't really see, how I was going to take the step from sports clerk to sports writer. I just didn't see the path going just through there specifically. And then, unfortunately, my uncle passed away from skin cancer about that time. This was about, almost coming up on 4 years ago. So then I ended up going to Austria, which is where my dad is from, my uncle is from, and I was there working in an English. I really don't speak much German, but I worked in an English language movie theater for the whole time I was there, basically. Also, I met a lot of great people, and it really sort of gave me a lot more confidence I needed when I finally came back, because it was such a fish out of water experience of, I don't speak the language, the culture is very different, just everything was different, but being able to survive there, make friends, do all the things I did there, was like, okay, I can do this in a place that isn't like where I'm from. Came back, was with my mom in Charlotte for this was March 2018, came back, was like, okay, it was nice having my mom make my bed, basically do my cooking and stuff, but it was like, okay, like time to get back on track with what I want to do with my life. Like I said, I was just applying for jobs, and then the day after I turned 25, I drove here for the first time for my interview with, I guess, the previous editor, not the editor now. And then about a month later, I remember it was May 2018, because the Han Solo Star Wars movie had just come out, was when I decided to they hired me about 2 weeks after I interviewed, and then Memorial Day, the weekend after that, I drove here, I guess permanently, to take the job at the News-Argus. That's how I got there.
Can you talk about, of course, what you accomplished at the News-Argus as I worked with you?
Yeah, I feel like I accomplished maybe not as much as I would have liked, honestly, but that's a different thing. I mean, the first time working with the previous sports editor there, it was a good experience, gave me some time to sort of learn the area a little bit, sort of get my bearings straight, like, because it was this. Honestly, Goldsboro is so different from where I'm from, and it still is. Like, every day I'm reminded I'm not in Boca anymore. But just being able to meet a lot of the ADs and the coaches that going out to this is obviously pre-COVID, so you could go anywhere, meet people, it was all good. And then, so I got here in May 2018, and then by November, the sports editor had left, and I was thrust into the role of interim sports editor, and it was like, honestly, it was really difficult, did not really know what I was going to do. It took me a while to figure out the vision I wanted to implement for the paper, and then they made me the permanent sports editor around February 2019, maybe January, yeah, and that's how I became the sports editor. And then at that point, I'd sort of figured out what I wanted to do, and like, as you know, we have a lot of high schools in Wayne County, like, I think 9 public schools, and then we have the private schools, and then we have Mount Olive, and then we even have the Wayne Preparatory Academy. So there's a lot of schools here, and it was a matter of like trying to figure out, well, how to do this fairly, how to do this the right way so each school can get a fair amount of coverage. And fortunately, I was able to bring along you and some other freelancers, and things were rolling. I did, like, every year the News-Argus does special sections. Did 3 of those basically by myself. Did the 2000, I guess, 19 and 20 baseball basically by myself. Wrote every article, took basically every photo. And the fall sports preview for 2019, 2020, I'd taken the pictures for them. I wrote most of the articles. Fortunately, I actually did have the news reporters who were not sports people write articles, and I edited them and did the whole thing. So I also, a very, very big learning experience, for sure, is how I'd sum it up.
I can imagine. Of course, as you know, that we were both furloughed due to the pandemic. How was things whenever you came back? And obviously now you have a new job with the Goldsboro Daily News.
Well, I was furloughed. Let me think. Pandemic happened in March 2000. March 2019, and the last public school game I covered was Rosewood versus Goldsboro, a girls' soccer game. The Rosewood girls won. They dumped Gatorade on the coach. It was a good sight, good way to go out. And then from March to April, I was basically told not doing really sports anymore. Was doing news. Did news for about a month. They furloughed me about 10 days before my birthday. Not fun. And it was rocky there for a while. Initially, it wasn't too bad because you never know how long things are going to last. And I thought I was going to be furloughed for less than 8 weeks, come back, it's all good again. And that turned into 4 months of being furloughed. And during that time, a person who works here contacted me saying the Goldsboro Daily News wanted to really launch a sports section for the website. And I thought it was just too good an opportunity to turn down, because it was really the opportunity of being able to really call, saying I made this. It wasn't here before me. It'll still, hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll be here after me. But it was just too good an opportunity to turn down. But being furloughed and it was rocky. It was not fun. Spent most of the summer. I bought myself a camera and spent most of the summer taking pictures for Wayne County Post 11 that summer, called the Jets, because there wasn't a normal Legion season, and it was nice to be able to still feel productive in a lot of ways and just sharpening the skills.
Can you talk about, of course, what was going through your mind whenever you did get the call that high school sports and even college? Because I know for me, I was at a Mount Olive game whenever I got the call.
What, that sports was being canceled?
Mm-hmm.
So we knew sports was going to be suspended for at least 3-4. I mean, you could even read the old article I wrote in the New-Argus.
Your mind when sports were canceled?
That's a loaded question there, Brandon. A lot went through my mind. Mostly how am I going to have a job if there's no sports? And like I said in the previous question, that I did news for about a month until I was furloughed, and no one had any idea how long it was going to last, and I don't know. Sports was going to be suspended for I think 3 weeks originally, and then just seeing, I guess I don't know if it's in the previous thing, but it doesn't matter. If I was asking when we spoke to the High School Athletic Association director over a Zoom media call, she said they had already talked about sports being canceled. So I knew right then and there that it could get dark. But you just gotta persevere and try to power through it. And it was rough there for a while, because we knew sports would not be back until at least when we figured out sports was canceled, done for the year. We knew sports wasn't going to come back until at least that fall. And then the High School Athletic Association came out with their schedule, and I was like, man, they're not going to play sports until November. So it was hard there, because you don't realize what you got till it's gone.
Yes, I can definitely relate, because I was
everything was shut down. There was what I'm saying. This was back in the period where they were watching, they were showing old NBA games, and the biggest thing going on was the Jordan documentary on ESPN, The Last Dance.
Can you talk about, of course, coming to the Goldsboro Daily News? What have you accomplished so far?
Well, I've only been here since about August, so I wouldn't say I've accomplished too much necessarily. But I think, luckily, just getting to stay in the area and not having to go someplace else, hopefully I've built up a good reputation around the county in dealing with the schools and parents and coaches and ADs, and most importantly the student athletes, because that's at the end of the day who you're really there to serve as the kids and make sure they have a good time playing sports. And I think giving people another outlet for quality sports coverage in Wayne County, because it was lacking for a while.
Can you talk about, of course, what the Goldsboro Daily News plans to, of course, accomplish with this sports season being so wishy-washy?
It's been tough because you never know. You think you're having a game on a Monday and something happens usually COVID related. All of a sudden the team's not playing for a couple weeks, or this and that. Like usually you have the JV girls, boys, and the next thing you know, only the girls are playing or only the boys are playing. So it's very like wishy-washy, but it's for the most part, I would say in a lot of ways it's worked out. Like I just said, I think people know that they can get quality sports coverage through the Daily News.
Can you talk about, of course, what are some of the things that the Daily News offers that, of course, other Goldsboro publications don't offer?
Well, shots fired there. It's free. That's a big thing, and I've learned that in most aspects of life, people just love free stuff, Brandon, and that's pretty much the biggest thing. Otherwise, I mean, not really otherwise, but also free is that I write and I take pictures, and I post the pictures online, post them on Twitter, GDN Sports. Make sure to follow, and they just give them away, and it's good, cool to see the kids use the pictures in their profile pictures. When they're done at the season, saying, "Oh, awesome ride! Can't believe season's over." When they're committing, things like that. And like I just said, that's what it's really about. Making sure, giving stuff to the kids. And then signings. Like I enjoy taking the signing photos and giving them to the parent and stuff like that, because those are huge moments for the kid, the school, the ADs, the coaches. So that's really, yeah. So hopefully I answered your question there.
Can you talk about, of course, I saw that the Goldsboro Daily News has the Athlete of the Week.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that and how that came about?
Well, that was not my idea. Cannot take credit for that one. That was pretty much a project launched by my bosses here at the Daily News, and they came to me like, "This is what we want to do. We want to do an Athlete of the Week." Like, okay, sure. So initially, when we didn't really have sports, there were coaches being like, "Well, Athlete of the Week, there are no sports right now." But it was trying to find kids. Maybe not they're the best. Maybe they're not the best player on the team, but maybe they're a senior who put in work over the 4 years, has a great GPA, involved in extracurriculars. A great teammate, a great person. So that was originally how it started, and now we've transitioned to a bit more normal Athlete of the Week, where you have kids who are maybe the best player, but I'm still always looking for kids who, interviewed a girl, spoiler alert, interviewed a girl at Spring Creek. She's a freshman, but that's who I was guided to by the AD. So it's really not about who I think is deserving, it's who the coaches and the ADs think is deserving, and then every kid gets a plaque saying they were named Athlete of the Week. Honestly, I was like, "Oh, cool. Don't really, whatever." Almost okay, cool, whatever, like a shrug type of thing. But then one of the signings I was at, a kid used the Athlete of the Week plaque with him when he signed. So I guess you don't really realize how important it is until it's already out there in the community. But I know there's been a good response from it. I've gotten some emails, some phone calls about people being really receptive about it. And I got an email from a mom who her son actually goes to a homeschool. And it's like, "Oh, what about my kid?" And it's like, so we're getting, people are coming from all over. And that's really what it's about.
That's amazing. What are some of the things that, of course, as football season wraps shortly in and stuff, What are some of the things that the Goldsboro Daily News plans to happen with football season?
Another great question, Brandon. Well, we're going to bring back, I don't know if it's on this poster, it is not. We're bringing the game of the week, so you're going to be able to listen to the game over the radio, whichever game is the game of the week. We already have the schedule more or less done. And then can't really answer that question fully because I'm not quite sure. I don't know if I don't know if I'm going to be at the game of the week game. I don't know if they want me at another game. We have a photographer here who also might go to a game. Fingers crossed they give us some freelancers. There's maybe something in line for them. So their football season is definitely like, it's go time. It's pedal to the metal time. Football is the sport most people care about the most, especially in America. It's Super Bowl Sunday. So there's that to it, but yeah, it's gonna be it's full steam ahead for sure. Hope just getting bigger, badder, bolder, like a good movie sequel.
With, of course, the spring season coming up, how does the Goldsboro Daily News and you plan to accomplish the spring season, knowing that athletes that were seniors last year got cut short their season?
Yeah, well, funny you bring that up. That kind of wraps back into Athlete of the Week, maybe finding juniors, now seniors, who lost the season, trying to find ways, and then you did a signing at Spring Creek. Kid lost his junior season, big season for recruiting, but still signs with Lenore Community College. So still trying to find ways to just create content that will not really replace, because you can't replace what was lost, but maybe try to put like a little Band-Aid over it, something like that. Try to lessen the blow, so to speak. But then baseball season, or spring sports in general, I mean, hopefully things keep rolling. I'm just going to keep rocking and rolling. I think a big part of it goes back to, like I said, the giving away the pictures and stuff for free. I know how much people appreciated it. Heard it from a lot of parents came up to me and said how much they appreciated it.
Can you talk about, of course, what goes as a photographer into the National Signing Day, as I only have covered a National Signing Day once?
Yeah, well, and that was a big signing. D1 football player, big stuff. So I'll be honest, signing photos are still kind of work in progress for me, because it's I spent so much time focusing on sports photography that when you do the signing, it's like totally different. There's all these eyes on you asking like, oh, what should we do? How should we pose? Do this and do that. Where sports is just more or less pure chaos. So it's a lot less me having to direct things. And it's really just about, I mean, you see a signing photo, the kid looks over, signs it, but it's like trying to get, there's like granular details about, like, maybe you can get the kid smiling, maybe like, back pre-COVID, you could really, a lot of times kids wear masks now while they're signing, so it's just a different, it's a totally different thing, but it's at the same time very, very rewarding, because it matters so much to the parents, the kid, the school, the AD, the specific community of the kid signing. So it's important to still put your best foot forward, even if you're not 100% sure of, like, all right, like, because also, I mean, signings are done, frankly, we're not doing them in the greatest of conditions. Like, you've been in a lot of these high school gyms, so it's a bit of a challenge for sure, but you still gotta try to put your best foot forward and step up to the plate. Hopefully you don't strike out.
What advice would you give upcoming sports editors or even sports photographers looking to get started?
Oh man, that's a really good question. I think just keep working on your craft. There's a lot of things that I couldn't do 3 years ago that I can do now, and you didn't know I could do it. Like, to be perfectly honest, I didn't really take photos until the New-Argus photographer left to get a different job, and she's awesome. She's phenomenal, and it's really just looking at a picture, looking at their photos, and just really like studying it, like asking yourself, like, can I do this? Can I do that?
Can you talk about what advice would you give upcoming sports photographers and sports editors looking to get started?
It's a really good question. I suppose just keep working on it, keep working on the craft. Like, never, for me, it's like, at least for everything for me, it's like, it can always be better, but then just, like, I literally Googled how to take good sports pictures, and I watched, I don't know how many hours of YouTube doing the same thing, because there's so many little tricks and nuances, setting up the camera, like some of the more basic things, like putting in an AI swervo, learning to the triangle for shutter speed, ISO, and aperture, like really like understanding how all this works. So you have to put in the work, for sure. That's probably the biggest thing I could say. And then studying other photography, whether it's sports, not sports, really like trying to look at things and get into like maybe you don't have to be there with a microscope or something like that, but really just magnifying glass, but really just looking at it and being like, okay, like maybe I can't do this, I can do it, my own version of it. And, obviously looking at sports photos from the best sports photographers in the world, the country, stuff like that.
What advice would you give, of course, sports writers that are struggling to write articles and stuff like that?
It's a tough time for sports writers, understandably, because the pandemic, you never know what's going to happen. But it's the same thing with photos. Just keep working on it. I don't know how many hours I spent reading through the old News-Argus, particularly like depending on what you're doing. Like in the area, like we're in Wayne County, North Carolina, so I spent I don't know how many hours going through the old News-Argus archives, reading, trying to learn the history of sports here, this and that, things of that nature. And then, writing and actual writing, that's another thing. You just got to keep working at it. Just like read, I read ESPN, I'm sure you do. I subscribe to The Athletic, shout out The Athletic. I read articles from them, just trying to read as much as I can. And then trying to see how, if I hear a cool word, because in sports, we're covering games, you know how it is, we're covering games all the time. So we're saying, how do you find ways to say the same thing over and over and over again, but at the same time, it's different every time.
That's wonderful advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media, along with, of course, the Goldsboro Daily Sports?
Shout it out again, follow at GDN Sports. We have GoldsboroDailyNews.com. You can follow the Goldsboro Daily News. Has their own news account on Twitter, and that's pretty much it. We have the Facebook page, Goldsboro Daily News on Facebook. That's pretty much where you can find me. My personal Twitter, if you go to at GDN capital letters _ sports, you'll see my personal Twitter. But you're more than welcome to follow me there too.
Thank you again, Avi, for your interview, and best of luck with the Goldsboro Daily News.
Good stuff, Brandon, and thank you.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.